Good morning, everyone. It's really great to have you with us. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your morning to join us for this conversation this morning about our warm welcome Advent action. Hopefully we'll have some of us joining here on the live stream this morning, and we're also recording this morning's session so that people can catch up later and hear a little bit more about this call to action. My name's Hannah and I work for the Joint Public Issues team, and I'm joined by Tracey Hume, who's a deacon in the North East, and Dave Hardman, who's the Methodist team leader at the Joint Public Issues team. And this morning we're just going to have a conversation about this call to action, how it connects with the warm welcome movement across the UK, why we think it's important to be taking action, particularly at this time of year and during the cost of living crisis, and then a little bit about how you can get involved and the resources that are available to help you with that. So just to kick off our conversation, Dave, I wonder if you could just give us a quick top line summary. What is it that we're asking people to do through this warm welcome action?
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. I mean, the first thing to really say is a big thank you to everyone who's opened a warm welcome within their building. The warm welcome website, I had a check this morning, there's over 3,000 places that are registered and open at this time of the year. So that's absolutely fantastic. And people have gone the extra mile to open up church spaces, library spaces, other community spaces, which is absolutely fantastic. But we're just asking people to go a little bit further. And I know it's a busy time of year. I know everybody's got a lot to do, but we're basically asking that people contact their MP, and we've got resources to do that. So we made it as easy as possible, but we just want to be able to ask people running warm spaces and ask those people also who are using the spaces to get in touch with their MP, so that the MPs get a chance to realise and listen to the experience of those who are running and using warm spaces, so that hopefully we end up not needing these warm welcomes and warm spaces again next year.
Thanks, Dave. And this is really a response to the overwhelming need that's been created by kind of the rising cost of living, isn't it? So we're seeing people who are struggling to afford to pay their heating bills because of the way that the energy costs are rising, struggling to balance the cost of heating their homes and buying food to put on the table. And so people in communities are opening these warm spaces, aren't they? These warm welcomes where people can come and take some of that burden off by being warm for a few hours and not having to heat their homes. And Tracey, where you are, that's been something that you've been coordinating, hasn't it? Something you guys have been doing together. And this action, this desire to kind of raise your voice and raise that experience has come from your area, hasn't it? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I work, part of my work is working with the Poverty Truth Commission in Gateshead. So we've been working very actively with Gateshead Council on how to have a network of warm spaces in our region that are safe spaces as well. So we worked with them on that, listening to voices of lived experience about what warm spaces should look like for the people who were likely to need them. So I've been doing that, and then we've been talking across our district, and many of our churches just wanted to get involved in some way in supporting the folk who are probably going to be the most vulnerable in their communities this winter. And we've now had over 40, I think we've got 42, 43 warm spaces across the district, offering over 50 sessions a week between them. And although I was kind of think this is fantastic that people really, really want to help the folk in their community, it's coming from a place of compassion, but also that sadness that we shouldn't be needing these spaces. And I get a restlessness sometimes with these things that I really want us to be able to help the practical need, but I still have this thing, we so need to speak to why people are there in the first place. We don't want these to be continuing to next year. So how do we as Christians and as spaces and people who use those spaces to speak into that a little bit and raise the profile that this shouldn't be needed. And about 5 years ago, I ran another Advent campaign where it was about universal credit rollout, and we asked people to send an angel to their MP, and the feedback we got from our MPs was really positive, that it had been a very kind way to raise an issue with them that helped them to listen to that, and they responded really positively. And so we want to do something similar that was a kind, soft action, but still used something within our Christian year to pin it on, if you like, and Advent seemed an appropriate one. So I remember there was a conversation that I was told about recently in a meeting where I think it's Leanne Kensett said that every warm space should be a hotbed of justice this winter. And I thought, right, how can we build on that? And I was going to do this in our region, we're doing it in our region, but obviously wanted other people to have the chance to join in. So we're just simply asking people to write to their MP this winter. Nothing very complicated. There are sample letters that we can talk about in a little while, and to send a candle to their MP. That could be, where have I put mine? That could be a tea light candle. It could be a homemade candle. It could be a paper candle, anything. Because this winter, although for Advent, for us as churches, we light candles every year, don't we? Every week, every Sunday in Advent and Christmas morning. And that first one is a sign of hope. And what does hope look like when you can't pay your energy bill, when you can't feed your family? What does that look like? And so we thought, well, let's send candles and say, look, this is how some people may have to light their homes this winter. Candles are going to have to feature more highly than maybe we would like them to raise that issue. And we can probably talk about what resources are available and how to do that as we go on. Can we, Hannah? Or do you want me to say
Yeah,
now?
definitely. We've got that kind of core idea, this write to your MP, send them a candle. And it's a really simple action, isn't it? Just like you've described, it's really easy for people to pick that up and to do it. It doesn't take much. But we realise that sometimes it's helpful to have a bit of a helping hand, a bit of guidance about how to do that well. So we put together some resources on the JPIT website, and the link will be in the chat and in the comment section of the Facebook Live for you to have a look at those. We've put together some template letters, like Tracey mentioned, a cutout candle that you can print out, cut out, get somebody to colour in perhaps to send to your MP, and some more slightly craftier ideas to send across as well. Perhaps you could create one, knit one, whatever you'd prefer to do to make that kind of that little package to send to your MP. And having the candle in there is really important, isn't it, to actually kind of bring it out from the pile of letters that MPs might get this winter, and to say a bit more than just kind of what we want to say by words, but also by that action, that symbol of Advent hope by the candle, isn't it?
And we're inviting people to put that letter inside a Christmas card. There isn't, it's lovely to send a card to our MPs to reassure them of our prayers and our thoughts at this Christmas season and for the work that they do. This isn't, we're not trying to knock at any MP at all. We just want to support them to be able to speak and give them a bit of, I guess, leverage about some of the information we're hearing and the situations we're experiencing that helps them to communicate that back nationally. And we wanted, as well as part of this, to ensure that the folk who become our guests at these spaces have the opportunity to have their voices heard as well, that this isn't just something for us to do, but actually we enable those voices to be heard. And so it may be that people choose to print off some copies of one of the MP letters that we've done that are for people who are guests to a warm space, so that they can sign their name to this, but also if they want to, they can add more information on the back of the letter about what their experience is. And it would be really lovely if the churches who are holding those warm spaces offered to take those letters and provide them with the candles, so that there is no cost implication to people having their voices heard this winter. But they can take a bundle of them to their MP. How fabulous would that look, to take a pile of them to your MP and say, look, all these people want to speak to you. And what an impact that would have, how many candles they might suddenly receive in their constituency office that says something really important, but in a very simple way.
Yeah, there's something really powerful, isn't there, about the warm welcomes in themselves are a community expression of responding to the need of our neighbours. Wouldn't it be brilliant if the voice we raise to our MPs is also one that comes from the community of kind of solidarity from those who are hosting warm spaces and those who are using them, standing together to say this, because that's really part of what it's about. And I mean, we've got, so our toolkit that's available on the JPIT website involves 3 template letters that you can go and download and edit, or you can use them as just a starting point for writing your letter. So we've got one if you are a host of a warm space, if you're part of a group who are providing that space. One, if you're a guest of a warm space, so perhaps you're somebody who's coming to use that space and you want to add your voice as well. And then if you're perhaps a member of a church who is standing in solidarity with those who are either using or providing these spaces, but you're not directly involved with one, it's really important that we're all part of this. And those really are template letters. They're a starting point. And Dave, I know we often encourage people when they're writing to their MP to share something of what it means to them, to speak up perhaps from their faith perspective or their community perspective. It's really important that people kind of adapt this and bring their own voice in, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, Tracey's used that phrase, lived experience. I think that's really, really important. And I think that's important that people add that voice, because actually that's what the MPs need to be able to hear. You know, MPs are involved in policy decisions, and let's be honest about this. We're in this situation, you know, because of policy decisions, and actually we could be in a different situation with different sets of policy. So what we need for MPs to hear is that real lived experience, so that policy is driven by that lived experience rather than policy being driven by you know, a sort of an ideology from the centre, because I think we need our people who have the power to hear how those policies are affecting people. So I think it's really important that we allow that lived experience, and you know, and we encourage people to share that with their MPs, because that's the way democracy works. You know, we don't just vote for somebody at an election and then let them get on with it. Actually, our democracy says, you know, you have a right to share your experience, to share your opinion with your MP throughout the term of Parliament. So we should really be encouraging people to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the extra things that the resource encourages as well is that we perhaps take that one step further and include in our letter to our MP an invitation to come and visit the warm space, to actually come and meet with people who are using it and hosting that space, to dig a bit deeper, to go a bit further than just kind of coming into contact with the issue, but to really listen. And that can be a really interesting visit. There's lots going on when your MP comes to visit a church project, particularly one that's offering a safe space for people. And the toolkit contains a bit of guidance about what it would look like to do that well. Tracey, John, just tell us a little bit more about what you think a good visit from an MP to a warm space might look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think just as a general principle, it's really good for churches to have a good working relationship with their MP, to invite them regularly, to have a cuppa with them, you know, not necessarily always when you need them to, because then they're more open to you speaking to them on other occasions. You know, we know they're busy, but this seems to be a really obvious opportunity where we have folk who are coming and using our spaces, who have something to say, who have truths that need to be heard, experience that needs to be shared, and but we want that to be done in a safe way. So one of the things that we encourage is that you communicate with the MP's office beforehand to ensure that the visit is safe and well run. So and we need to make sure that MPs, we know that they care very deeply about the people in their constituency, but that this isn't a photo opportunity. This isn't one of those occasions where they're cutting the ribbon of an opening of something. This is literally you're coming to listen to the voices of lived experience in that space. And in order that to be done well, we need to make sure that the folk who do come know that that's going to happen in advance, so that they don't get that sprung on them. And it may be that there is an area of your warm space that could be put aside for that. So the ones who would like to get involved in that conversation could, and the ones who feel that that's not for them don't feel that they have to. So there'll be maybe a little separate space for that. And ensuring that the MP knows they've come to listen. This isn't an opportunity to share why they have policy decisions or what else they're doing at the moment. This is just a chance to come and listen to people in their constituency who are really struggling this winter, and to hear that and to understand what that means for them at the moment in real practical terms, and to take those stories away with them to see how that might impact on their work. And then it might be that when if the MPs come, and there may be some follow-up, maybe there is a way that you have that ongoing conversation with your MP. There may be other opportunities in your community where you can gather people with lived experience of different needs that you are aware of, or that they're telling you about, that this is an ongoing conversation. So just go to that the JPIT website, and there is this, as part of the toolkit, there is just a little page with some notes, of just some ideas about how to do that safely. At the end of the day, safety is really, really important, and we don't want anybody who comes to our warm space to be compromised in any way. It's still an anonymous space, so they have to have that opportunity to not be seen and heard. Therefore, that's why, you know, not having a photo opportunity is really important in this place. So yeah, please encourage whoever, maybe your minister or your facilitator for your warm space, to have a really good look at those resources before you invite them in.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of that's available at jpit.uk/warm welcome, and we'll pop that link in the comments as well. And if you are thinking about this and you've still got some questions and you want to chat it through with somebody, you can get in touch with JPIT as well at inquiries@jpit.uk. Just drop us an email and we'd be happy to talk some of those things through. I think it's really important that we create good platforms for people to share their experience, and this is an opportunity to do that. And that's really at the core of this action, is creating that platform for this experience to be heard. One of the aspects of the template letter is it's about raising this voice and not necessarily asking for your MP to raise a policy action or to go and vote for this in Parliament, which some of our actions might include. But it is part of that bigger conversation about how do we get from this winter, where people haven't been given enough support to respond to the rising cost of living, to keep and maintain a decent standard of living, to next winter, where we don't want to see any of this need before us. We don't want to see the need for warm spaces again. Dave, could you just talk to us a little bit about how this is part of that bigger conversation about how we move forward differently from this moment, and how this can be perhaps a springboard for change?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, quite important that we recognise that we're doing this in Advent, and Advent is a time we think about lots of things in Advent, don't we? We think about hope and light, and we've mentioned those already around the candle. But another thing about Advent is preparation. And one of those phrases that we hear in Advent is prepare the way of the Lord. And actually, to me, this is about making that preparation, because the kingdom of God is not littered with food banks or warm spaces. It's not a place where there is poverty. It's actually a place where, as Jesus said, people have life in all its fullness, and poverty denies people life in all its fullness. And so, you know, we as a society, we have kind of walked into a situation where we accept food banks as just being part of the fabric of our communities. And sometimes we need to take a step back and recognize that that's not right. That's absolutely not right. Yes, it's right that we meet people at the point of need. Absolutely. And thank you to everyone that does that. But actually, we can't be in this position next year. So what this hopefully can be is, I think, a real start to that process where we say, actually, we've had enough of this. We've had enough of being in a country where there is enough wealth around to be shared, and actually a country where, you know, those people who have wealth have seen an increase, and those people that haven't have seen a decrease. So let's actually start to move towards a society where an more equal sharing would be seen in the fact that we don't have food banks, would be seen in the fact that actually next winter we don't even mention the word warm welcome, because everybody actually is able to heat their homes. And we know there's lots of external circumstances, but actually I think we have to realise that if our policies and systems in this country weren't broken, then actually we wouldn't be seeing the sort of extreme poverty that we are seeing. And we wouldn't be seeing people actually choosing between heat and food. report this morning about a charity saying people actually turning to eating dog food as a way of feeding their family. Now, that sort of may well be headline news, but actually that's something that we've got to say, hang on a minute, this cannot go on in this country. And so I think it's going to be really important that we continue this campaign with other campaigns in the new year, and that actually faith groups, anti-poverty charities, people can come together and challenge the basic structures and challenge our politicians to actually put in place a system of social security that works and that is security, because that's what it's supposed to be. And so this is, as you said, an action which is in some ways quite gentle, saying to the MPs, come and listen, come and hear, this is what we're doing. We want you to understand why people are guests in these spaces. But actually, I think then we need to continue with some harder asks to ensure that as we move forward, we make sure that everybody has a fullness of life and that actually we do prepare the kingdom of God.
Yeah, absolutely. And gentle doesn't mean not powerful, does it? Because actually we really know that creating spaces where the lived experience of people who've perhaps been on the margins of our communities are the centre, they are brought to the centre, that we shape things around them, that's a really powerful action for us to take. And this is really for us about loving your neighbour to its fullest extent, not just ensuring that they're full today and tomorrow, or they're warm today and tomorrow, but that they're warm and full and flourishing in the long term as well.
I think there's something as well about sometimes when we take part in campaigns or try and write to our MP and things, we feel like we're a little lone voice and we can't make a difference. But one of the things that would be really lovely to see and hear is if you do write to your MP and you get a reply and you're willing to share that with us, a photograph of your letter or a little bit of a comment that you saw, quote it, use that on some of the JPIT or One Welcome social media stuff, so that you can see that there is a little bit of a movement happening, that there are other people hearing, other MPs around the country, and that ours is not a lone voice. The more voices that join in, the louder it is and the harder it is for it to be ignored. So each letter that's sent makes such a difference, and will make a difference to your MP. So don't be discouraged that you think it can't make a difference, because it can.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to see how you've sent off your candle and the letter that you've written, and perhaps any responses that you receive as well. You can share those with JPIT on our social media. You can find all of the links to our different social media platforms on our website, which is jpit.uk. And you can email them to us as well if that's easier. Again, inquiries@jpit.uk.
And let us know if your MP came as well. That would be good, wouldn't it, to hear how many of them actually take us up on that offer.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a shared movement. This is a moment for us to share some of that learning between us as well. And that's one of the reasons that we've really also been encouraging people to make sure that their warm space is registered with Warm Welcome, which is this national network of warm spaces across the UK. Dave said earlier, we've got over 3,000 signed up already, but we know that's just the tip of the iceberg of those people providing spaces. But actually, the more we can get signed up to that space, we can present that kind of collective response that enables us to show how community groups are responding, how church groups are responding, and to move forward together with this as well. So you can find all of the details of that at warmwelcome.uk, where you can register your warm space, and it'll be added to their interactive map, so that people who are looking for a warm space as well can go and find out a little bit more about where they can find that support. Just to wrap us up, Dave and Tracey, would you have one final piece of advice or encouragement for people perhaps who are watching this, who are thinking about taking action, who are thinking about maybe taking this back to their church and encouraging other people to do it? What would your piece of advice or encouragement be for them?
I think I go back to just make sure that you know that this isn't just something that is a little cry in the darkness and nobody can hear, that it's really important that we do that. And also that if you're able to provide that opportunity for people who have to receive going to a warm space, who have to be on the receiving end of that support, that enabling them to have a voice is so important at the moment. They already feel disempowered. They feel, their value has been reduced because they can't provide what they would normally do. They don't want to have to go to these places. So if we can provide them with a way of having a say, I think that would make such a difference to them and how they feel, as well as to the MPs.
Thank you.
I was reminded before when Tracey was saying that it's not insignificant if you write a letter, of one of my favourite proverbs, which is, if you think you're too small to make a difference, you've never been to bed with a mosquito. You know, and I think that, you know, we need to encourage people to be part of this, and I think also, you know, I think I would encourage. It's a phenomenal response that, you know, we're talking about here in terms of opening up spaces for people to be warm, and that is absolutely brilliant. And you know, we recognize how much that costs people in terms of time, because, you know, energy is not cheap for churches or other public spaces one little bit. We recognize the effort that's involved in creating that safe space, that welcoming space. And, you know, I think it's important to say that the warm welcome ethos is that actually it's a free space as well. So, you know, there's no return here. And it is a brilliant that people have responded. And I would say that, you know, let's take that energy and that commitment into seeking a political change as well. And great, we're meeting the moment of the need now, but let's make sure that we never have a winter again when we need to open up our spaces so that people can be warm. So let's take some of that energy and effort we've put into the warm welcome and go that extra mile and say, you know, to our MPs, this situation is not right.
We want those hotbeds of justice.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for spending some time with us thinking about this. If you've been watching and you'd really like to go and find out a little bit more, to perhaps already write your letter to your MP, take 10 minutes to do that now, to think about how you might get that candle together, or how you might carry that to your church and encourage others to be part of that. You can find all of the resources at jpit.uk/warm welcome. And that link will be in the comments below. But we'd really encourage you, this doesn't need to be a big thing. This can be something that you perhaps take half an hour reflectively to do at some point this week. And it's an opportunity for you to really empower other people to raise their voices too. And we really look forward to hearing your responses and to seeing what comes out of this. So thank you so much. Have a good day.